Good afternoon. Today is a dark day and I thought I'd make something sweet that it can be made with almost nothing from your house. I grew up in a house where we didn't have a lot of money and my mom was always trying to keep us healthy. So as a result, you learn to make a lot of things out of nothing. So today I'm going to make my famous peanut butter fudge. It takes 3 ingredients, uses the microwave. You can also use, if you have nut allergies in your family, you could use, the other day I made one out of leftover healthy peanut butter mixed with almond butter and a little bit of leftover Nutella. The only thing you can't really skimp on is it does call for a cup of butter. It makes a huge difference in the flavor and having it firm up when you finish the product. If you have to use another kind of fat, you could use coconut oil or margarine, but your fudge isn't going to turn out as firm. The third ingredient is icing sugar. It is pretty inexpensive, and a lot of us, if we don't remember to pick it up, when I do have a chance to pick it up, I usually buy 2 or 3 bags. They're usually around $2, a little bit more. And it is something you can buy at Shoppers Drug Mart without having to go to the full grocery store. This recipe calls for 1 cup of nut butter, 1 cup of butter, and because it calls for 1 pound of powdered sugar, which is really 454 grams, that is half of this bag. This icing sugar is a 2 kilogram bag. Divide that in half, that's a pound, roughly. Quite often when you get used to baking for a while, you don't need to measure as much. In this case, I am gonna measure the fats in particular. I found that if you put too much fat and not enough sugar ratio, the fudge will be soft. If I put too much sugar and not enough fat, the peanut butter and the butter, it becomes dry and boring. Another tip that I learned is on the butter, it's kind of hard to see, there is a line and it says 1 cup, half a cup, quarter cup, quarter cup. Because I need to make a full cup of butter, I'm going to take a knife and cut my butter straight down the middle. I know exactly half of this pound is 1 cup. It's confusing when you bake because some recipes are going to call for measured in a measuring cup. That's why I do have this. I don't always use it. Eventually your eye starts to know what does 1 cup look like. This is the size of 1 cup of butter. Also, it's the size of half a pound of butter. Half a pound, 225 grams. Some recipes call for sticks of butter. In Canada, we don't tend to sell our butter in 4 sticks. But if you did, 2 sticks of butter would be half the pound. 1 stick would be a quarter of the pound. So cut this in half again. I'm gonna put this into a bowl and the peanut butter. I need 1 cup. I'm putting in approximately 1 cup here. Sometimes I'll put more if I have it. I'd rather have too much than not enough. And I may have to leave you for a second and go find my secret emergency container of peanut butter. We go through a lot of peanut butter in this house when we're not at school because you can eat it as a quick source of protein. It's a comforting flavor for some people. Some nationalities will put it in their savory dishes. I've had some really good Thai and African cooking, Ghanaian, using peanut butter and peanut stew. It is a really quick, I know people who, if you're on keto and all that, you might eat a teaspoon of peanut butter or almond butter and some fruit as a quick snack to keep your blood sugar up. It's also used in energy balls. I use it in Thai sauces. I'm gonna go find my other container. I'll be right back. Stash of peanut butter. How can I not find it? There it is. You gotta love that fancy editing that I didn't do, considering I took a degree in television editing. At the time, they weren't really talking about editing on your cell phone. So this has been a learning experience. I also am learning to, who cares if it's not a perfect video? It's really to take the place of me being your cool aunt. So I'm eyeballing, because peanut butter is messy to work with, what does a cup look like? I actually probably have too much, but this is approximately 1 cup of peanut butter, 1 cup of butter. I am now gonna microwave it for about a minute or 2. Hopefully that's not too loud for you. Another kind of fudge that I will probably be showing you at some point is an even cheaper to make one is, I think it's called Divinity fudge or something. It's basically butter and ground sugar and a bit of water. And that's one that you make over a pot on a stove. As a kid, that was the only treat we could ever have. It took almost no ingredients. Sorry, that and apple crisp, that's always easy. Divinity fudge would be boiling water. You'd boil water, sugar, milk. I often make it with cocoa. Some people make it maple, some people make it vanilla, just plain. Some people make it with peanut butter, and it's done on the stove top, stirring it. It's a little bit more finicky because you're not using a microwave. If you want another kind of fudge, an ingredient that I don't often have in the house but comes up often under microwave fudge recipes is sweetened condensed milk. And just a can of that, I believe it's sugar, probably cocoa, there's all different kinds. There are other microwave recipes of fudge that use that sweetened condensed milk. Anytime you want to bake, my big thing is what do I have in the cupboard? And I'm seeing my melting. Let's stir it. What's amazing is the butter melts right away. The peanut butter takes a little longer to melt. This, I'm gonna call this store-bought versus health food store peanut butter, because that's what we called it growing up. The store-bought peanut butter, it already has a lot of sugar in it. And it's almost like eating Reese's peanut butter filling. Whereas, I'm gonna use my whisk to break up the sections of peanut butter. Whereas health food store natural peanut butter, that's what I was raised eating. It has a little bit less flavor for this recipe, but would be somewhat healthier. And I don't know that there's even a healthy version of this recipe at all. I'm just trying to stir it and get rid of all the lumps of the butter and the peanut butter and make sure that they're equally mixed, or that fancy chef word, incorporated. So this is almost done. I think I don't even need to use the microwave anymore. I only did, that was 1 minute and 20 seconds. I used a large microwavable bowl. I have a special story about this bowl. This one's for my mother-in-law, but I do collect these Pyrex paint colored bowls. That was the kind of bowl my mom and my grandma always cooked in. And so whenever I see them at a yard sale or at the Goodwill or at Salvation Army or someone's giving them away, I definitely would like one. For some reason, I feel like it brings me back to my childhood, and it's a comforting color. This is almost the color of jadeite. It's a color that I might be doing at some point on my front door. Simple pleasures in the time of COVID. Okay, next thing is I have this icing sugar. It is very messy, so I always tap it down. Same as what I do with the craft dinner package. Then I'm gonna take some scissors and I want to cut it across the top. I don't know why, I like how neat that looks, better than just tearing the bag. And again, we said this is 1 kilogram, which is really 1,000 grams. I'm gonna take my hand and push into what I think looks like half and dump in half, which would be equal to 1 pound. There we go. So I have about half the bag left. I'm gonna put an elastic or a twist tie on it so the next person in the cupboard isn't gonna be met with a surprise. And this is what I use for my emergency birthday cake. So there's probably only 2 things I do with this all the time. Fudge, cakes with icing. So right off the bat, I can see that this dustiness needs to be stirred in. So I'm gonna start scraping down the sides. Scrape and fold, scrape and fold, scrape and fold. This is where I wish I had the fancy technology to show you overhead like a chef show what I'm doing. But the key is scrape down and incorporate, scrape down and pull it in, scrape down and pull it in, scrape down and pull it in. One of my friends recently made this recipe that I sent her. She didn't scrape down and pull it in. She used an electric mixer because it does make it smoother, but the white icing sugar went everywhere. So I've learned the hard way, if I'm using beaters, electric beaters, which I usually prefer, or my KitchenAid, I want to use a deep bowl. Then this white powdered sugar isn't going everywhere. So it's already starting to stiffen up. I gotta keep working and getting it stirred in while I can. I'm gonna give this a quick stir, incorporate, scrape and bring it in, scrape and bring it in. And what this does is it moves the wet liquidy fudge from the bottom into the white icing sugar. Now, let's see if I can use, I don't know, let's see. Oh, I can't even use my, my beater because it's so dry. So this is where germaphobes are gonna freak out. I wash my hands and I will wash them again. And I may have to knead it like bread. And bread, that will be another one. I see a lot of people are making bread right now. I'm trying to get out, tap, tap, tap. You're trying to get out all the little bits. This is the thing my brother and I would fight over, who got to lick the beater. I'm gonna wash my hands and then I'm gonna knead it just like almost, I would say almost everything you work with in baking, other than say cake batter, has to be kneaded. So let's see if I can move this down. Oh, a little bit better. And I'm gonna pull back here. So it is kind of fun. It's like playing in mud. Some of you might like this. Some of you might not like the texture, but I'm gonna keep folding it into itself till I don't see the white icing sugar anymore. Look how messy this is. Although you might enjoy this if you like tactile things. And we're almost done. I can still see a little bit of white. I'm gonna mix it 2 more times. And then, oh, I'm almost done. Okay, so I'm gonna get this off my fingers. Then, oh, so gross. So gross, but if you weren't here, I'd be licking this. And then I'm gonna get I like to use parchment paper if at all possible, or wax paper, or tin foil, whatever's in your drawer, because whatever I use in this case will make it a lot easier to pull it off. So this is my favorite pan for this fudge. You could use square, you could use a baking sheet, you could use glass. I'm going to take some parchment paper that I saved from another project that I did and press it in. Press it into the edges. This is going to save the fudge from being wrecked in my pan and therefore not having to scrape it out. What happens is if I don't line it with something and I go to cut this, or when you make Rice Krispie squares, you're going to unfortunately cut the metal surface, especially bad if you're using a non-stick pan, because then you're wrecking that protective kind of T-fall or non-stick protective coating. And what that does, in theory, is expose you to whatever chemicals that thing's made out of. So I'm gonna take all this off. Every last bit matters. Now I'm going to, with my hands, I am pushing it out to reach the edges. This will make a very thin fudge. And again, this is honestly everyone's most favorite fudge that I make. It took almost no time. It's only taking longer because I'm talking. I can see my fingerprints in it. I want to get rid of that. So what I do is I take the little bit of paper that's on the outside and fold it over and press my hand into that. And guess what? Eventually gravity smooths out most of this fudge and you have this beautiful sheet of fudge. I'm gonna stick that in the fridge. When it's firmed up, maybe half an hour of that. Oh, and I wanna tell you, oh my gosh, it tastes amazing. It's especially good if you like Reese's peanut butter cups. Check back often and I'll give you more tips. Have a good afternoon.